Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Fit for Function podcast with a new aesthetic and a new co-host. As always, I am your now co-host, Rob Dunn, and joining me is Mrs. Beccie Dunn.
Hi, I'm
Welcome.
excited.
It's great to have you. And I'm really excited that we were able to make this happen with your schedule. And I just know that with your audience, with your years of knowledge, you'll be able to add so much value. And so, looking forward to the next chapter of the podcast.
Yeah, so am I.
So as you might have guessed, I know Bex quite well, but perhaps you guys don't, and thought it might be a useful exercise just to provide a short, maybe half an hour, 45-minute introduction episode into who is Beccie, what's her background, what qualifies her to come on and talk about the subjects that we talk about on the podcast. So would you like to give the people a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Beccie. I have been a strength and conditioning coach for over 10 years, specifically working in the pole fitness and aerial acrobatic space. But I have a history of personal training. And I've gone really, over the last couple of years, I've gone really niche and specific with pole and aerial acrobatics.
Yeah. So let's go all the way back and perhaps give a bit of a run through up until modern day. Were you a sporty kid growing up?
No, I wasn't sporty at all. I dabbled a little bit in sport. Did the odd, took dance and enjoyed that through school. But did I have a sport like you? You were a sporty kid, absolute sport through and through. That was not the case for me. No.
Right. So if you're a non-sporty kid, how do you end up running multiple fitness businesses, having an international presence, a 6-figure social media following? You know, how does that happen? So what was your introduction like into fitness as a whole, for example?
I suppose it started with dance because I enjoyed dance at a sort of senior school level. So I enjoyed that, but really it all started when I got into pole, specifically into pole. And then my love for the sport itself, the choreography, stuff like that. And then off the back of that, started training in the gym. That's when I sort of started going to the gym a little bit, but that really elevated when we got together. And yeah, absolutely fell in love with it. I was an absolute sponge around you and your knowledge. And from there, just really applied that because I love that. I love that. But I'm just really interested in the different ways that you can train and how you can apply that to different forms of training. I love it. I'm a big fan of all styles of training. So, that's where that really grew, that initial first pole session, and then going to the gym with you. That's where it all started.
And how old were you when you started pole?
17, first lesson, took a break, and then really got back into it sort of age 19.
Why did you take the break? What happened?
The studio we went to was too far away. So we were just young, really, really young. First started driving. It was about sort of a 30-minute drive away, which might not seem like a lot now because a lot of people do travel to studios and 30 minutes isn't a lot. But at the time when we were that young, it was the other side of town, parking in an area that you didn't know, dark, in an area that, like I say, you didn't really know. So yeah, it wasn't right. We're getting back late at night, stuff like that. So it stopped, didn't find anything local. And then I was like a little bit hungry to get back into it, did some research, found a school directly opposite where we work. So then I was obviously just going to work and then going to the studio straight from there. So yeah.
So for those that don't know, that actually Bex and I met working together in a totally different line. We were working in a cruise company of all things, and we were just a couple of kids working in a call center selling cruises to rich people.
We did well at that. We were good.
Which we did pretty well at, to be fair. And that's kind of how it started. So that convenience piece. I think the fact that it's the new pole school was just across the road. You could go straight after work.
Oh yeah.
I say to my clients all the time, like, it has to work for you. There has to be an element of convenience.
Yeah, but do you remember when we were training and we would go to the gym opposite work?
Yeah.
And we'd go on our lunch breaks, quickly get in a session, head back, or straight after work, and it was because it was literally opposite Carnival.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference, I think, between like we're looking for convenience, not ease. And what I mean by that is like it should be available to you in a convenient way, but we're not looking for convenience in the capacity of something being easy. But it certainly does help if you've got something just a short walk or close to you. You're just far more likely to, like you say, not have to drive across town
Yeah.
in the dark, in the pissing rain to do the sport or go to the gym.
But then you could take your stuff to work,
Mm.
like we did. Have it packed, get changed in the toilet, and then go. There's no, you get home, sit on the sofa, or have that immediate downtime. You keep going, and that's something that's always worked for me. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
So you did pole and not just pole, right? You fell into hoop as well.
No, I didn't fall into hoop for so I must have started pole in when did we meet? 2014. So I must have started pole in 2013. I didn't start doing hoop till like 2017. So
Right.
yeah, it was all pole because again, hoop is not new. It's just not something that was really, all the studios were always pole.
Right.
So it wasn't, or I didn't know if that was hoop. I didn't even know what hoop was. That was something that I only learned at my previous studio.
So the combining of the acrobatic arts in studios is a newer thing. It's not new, but it's
Yeah.
they're starting
There
to
was,
add elements.
yeah, there wasn't hoop on offer at school. Pole, the way pole is back in 2013, 2011, previous to what it is now, is worlds apart. So yeah, it wasn't as accessible.
Got it. And how long were you training for before you started teaching?
So I started in 2013 and then I got my qual in 2017.
4 years.
Yes, thanks, babe.
So
So yeah, 4 years.
okay. And what was the transition? Why did you get the qualification? And how did it come about? What was the moment when it was like going from just training, being a student to a coaching capacity?
Yeah, I always knew that I loved teaching. Like when I was in senior school, I taught a dance class when I was in year 11. I really, really enjoyed that. And then I enjoyed helping people in pole. Like I enjoyed being, as I become a bit of a big fish,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
being like having to demo or helping people that were struggling, that I really, really enjoyed. And then when I moved, because I got to a point in my first school where my instructor said to me, I can't teach you anymore. Do you remember that message coming in? Do you remember we had that discussion?
Mm-hmm.
Like she was like, I can't teach you anymore. You're going to have to go to
Yeah,
another
she
school.
sacked you as a client.
Yeah, which was like the best,
Yeah, no,
she
top
said to
level
me like,
coaching.
yeah,
That's like the sign of a good coach.
I can't teach you anymore. You're going to have to go somewhere else. So I did. I found somewhere else. And then one of the immediate conversations that I had when I was at that studio was like, I'd love to teach. And she was like, well, I'll get you there. Get your qualification. You can teach for me. I was like,
Great.
okay. So yeah, that really then took a little while to evolve because you've got to do some shadowing. Like the sign of we were literally only having this conversation the other day, right? Like you can go and get qualified, piss easy. You could buy it today. This doesn't mean that, you're at the right level to be able to teach. So it's very, detailed. So yeah, from that point, like at least sort of 3 years shadowing, learning the ropes, taking the class, taking the actual assessment, and then yeah, getting into it and taking your class. That first time taking a beginner class to where I am now is huge, but it's still nerve-wracking, and learning and being able to adapt and being put on the spot and different body shapes, different abilities. It's being able to adapt is huge.
For sure. So got qualified, started shadowing, started coaching some sessions. And then I think that's where it kind of I think your story gets interesting. And I think there's a whole episode on this later down the line about the transition from coaching ad hoc to then running a successful aerial academy,
Yeah.
growing an online presence. But talk us a little bit about I guess the transition from teaching ad hoc, 1 or 2 hours an evening, working a corporate job, to the transition you've made into where you are now. So sort of talk us step by step through that best you can.
So that transition, I want to start as well by putting a caveat on this. I didn't have children.
Yeah.
So I had so much free time. I was teaching nearly every day, every week. So every night a week. So I was teaching Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I was in training on a Saturday. So that was pretty much all the time that I was training, and working a corporate job. So a bit like what we were talking about, start at 8 in the morning, 8:30, work till 4, 4:30, and I would park at the studio, which was in Southampton, and then walk to and from. So I'd never go home in between. So then I would finish most nights at sort of like 8, 9 o'clock. And that was my day. So first of all, I had the absolute passion and love for it, like to be just that dedicated to that was all I wanted to do. So having that, actually where it all changed is then when COVID hit and we were forced into an 80% working week. I was working Monday to Thursday with Fridays off. At this point, I didn't have my own studio.
Mm-hmm.
So Fridays were off and I was filling up. I remember being like, oh, it's be really, really nice. We'll chill out. Like, not really, like that was a day off, but it wasn't because I was working from like 8 till 1, 2 o'clock every day, like every Friday, back-to-back PTs. And then from there, I was like, well, this is a, I can make a bit of a living off of this. This substitutes the dropped 20%.
So you'd already started acquiring personal training clients from just pole and aerial.
This was before.
So like students from the academy that you were teaching at.
Yeah.
They became personal training clients.
Yeah. At this point though, I did have 1 or 2 people reach out from afar and have PTs with me. And at that point, I remember being like a bit like, oh my God, someone's actually traveling to come and have a PT with me. But it wasn't to the scale that it is now. But anyways, so yeah, it was just mainly students within the school, back to back pretty much. If not, I was working at least like 9 till 12. So, anyways, I was like, okay, so this was when everything started ticking over, but even then when we went back in but for me, I know this is a side off that, but obviously during the pandemic, I started kettlebell classes online. So then I had the kettlebell classes, then had the kettlebell plan. So I had the income coming in from the kettlebell plan, had the income coming in from personal training and then teaching as well. Then starting to weigh up actually, the cost of running a studio, what that would look like. And then slowly making that transition. But, I was doing that for years. And actually, I didn't actually leave my corporate job until I started my online coaching business. So I had online coaching coming in. But even then, you have to go for a period of not charging clients, having free clients, build with your pricing structure and stuff because you're new to it and you get your experience. So I had the online coaching, had the kettlebells, the kettlebell plan from the experience of all of that stuff. And then PTs as well, and then teaching. So then having all of that, getting to a point where it's like, I actually don't really need to do this anymore. First, I don't like it anyway anymore. Like, but I can do this, and having that self-belief, being like, nah, if I go out on my own, if I have all of that time that I have that I'm applying to my job, I can make this work.
So you had online clients. You had personal training clients that were from the school you were teaching at. Talk to us about the kettlebell thing, because for me, watching you, that was kind of the moment everything started to blow up.
Yeah,
that was the tide changing, and slowly seeing like just your Instagram following climb, and we talk about it all the time, right? It doesn't matter how many followers you got if you don't have customers.
Yeah.
But there is a significance to having lots of followers that we can't deny.
Yeah,
where
definitely.
you attract more eyeballs, and therefore that generally looks like it translates into sales. Talk about the kettlebell thing, because for those that don't know the story, I think it's wild.
Yeah. So, but I know we're going to get into this, and I know you're going to say to me about jumping around because I'm so bad at it. So I apologize throughout this. But when my Instagram was growing, the interest for kettlebells was still really low in terms of like the content that I was putting out. But yeah, I put out I was kettlebell training. We started doing it through lockdown, and we literally started the online class because I was like, well, I'm going to train. So why don't I just put out an online class? It helps keep me accountable. We're all sort of like, people were struggling as well, and people needed that.
Yeah, they needed community.
And just needed some help, and being the one to be like, I'll do it. Like, I'm going to do it anyway. And again, like I used to PT friends and stuff. So I used to love doing that type of stuff, and we were going to do it together anyway. So, Rob was never live on class, but was always doing the workout with us. So we set up a class Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And then there was a period where the studios opened. We were allowed to go back in and train. Went back in and trained. And I was like, holy fucking shit, I am so strong for how much time I've had off pole. Because at the time I didn't really have a pole in the lounge or at home. But I was like, wow. And all I've been doing was this style of training. And so that evolved. And that was when the Kettlebell Plan 1 come to light. Because I was like, well, I've got all of these workouts written down, my little blue book of dreams, which I talk about a lot. Every single workout was written down. So I was like, I can make this into a plan for people and help people. And it was literally my exact blueprint. It was the exact workouts that I'd done during lockdown. Put the plan out, huge success. Even to this day, like it's however many years old now, what? It's nearly 6 years old, and still a huge success, really. So put it out, had a huge demand for a second kettlebell plan. I've had a massive demand for a third, but you know, I could just be endlessly writing kettlebells at this point. But yeah, I wrote the second plan. And then, I mean, anyone that's been following me for a while, see my journey, or even you can see it in my physique too, right? My strength has gone from like leaps. And I'm still predominantly kettlebell trained to this day. I kettlebell train twice a week. I'm such a big advocate for it. But yeah, like I was saying with the following, my following was growing during COVID. That was exploding. And I was really trying to cement myself as a strength and conditioning coach, but putting out kettlebell stuff and the content at the time, people were sort of like, take or leave. You know, don't really think you need to cross train. Don't really think kettlebells are I don't really think kettlebells are worth it. Until they start to see your results, your clients' results, people's results on the pole, and they're like, I want a slice of that. And it's like, well, yeah, you can by following this plan or kettlebell train, you know, like it will get you there. So yeah, that's how it evolved.
So how did you grow your Instagram following? What was the thing that took it? Because I remember going, we would sat in this very room going, holy shit, 5,000 followers. Holy shit, 10,000 followers. And now it's, you know, in the high six figures. How did that happen?
It was the tutorials, which comes back to what we always say is value, right? I was providing value, and I've never stopped providing value to anyone, really. So I posted a tutorial, and it was the most basic tutorial, literally one of the first things you will ever learn at a pole class. It's called Around the World. So bloody basic. And within 10 minutes had 150 people save it. And I was like, even by that standard, if you had 150 people save your post in 10 minutes, you'd be like, whoa. So at that point, I was like, oh, okay, there's something in this. And then so I sort of went through the syllabus. So like created a front hook tutorial, a back hook tutorial, how to invert, how to do this, how to do that. And then, yeah, it evolved, grew. But it was really off the back of tutorials where everything exploded.
So we come out of the pandemic. You've now got a substantial Instagram following. You have a sustainable revenue model in the kettlebell plans and in personal training. And without getting into numbers, we were looking at like what you were generating from your fitness stuff and what you were being paid as a salary, which wasn't a salary to turn your nose up at, but we're sort of weighing it up and thinking, hang on, they're getting pretty close. Like it's catching up. So I think certainly because we get a lot of people come to us and ask about business consultancy and business growth. And so to add some value, let's talk about kind of the transition from there. You'd been working at it as a side hustle, been generating some money. I think that's step number one, by the way. If you want to leave your corporate
100%.
job, side hustle, start turning it into, you know, real money, start generating some revenue from it.
But with that, can I add something on just really quickly? If you're talking like a side hustle and you really, really want to make it a main hustle, like you can vouch for this. I worked every fucking hour.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be like, oh, you know, like I want to make this a side hustle. Maybe I'll do it like an hour a week or 2 hours a week. Like it needs to be a hustle.
I mean, it can be an hour a week, but it's the same with any fitness journey.
Yeah, of course.
Like if you only want to eat well half of the time,
your results are going to be slower.
You'll get the results eventually, but but yeah, I mean, like you're the classic example of it took me 10 years to become an overnight success. People didn't see the graph, people didn't see the late nights, but talk to us about slowly transitioning out of, I call it corporate America. We were working in the UK, but it was a real old school traditional corporate American company.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that transition from kind of corporate to, I guess, self-employed freedom.
Definitely. So I think the biggest thing with this is self-belief more than anything else. Like when I knew it was time, like, and I said the same to you when you left your job.
Mhm.
If you know in your heart of hearts that this is the right time for you, like you just know. But I was obviously, we were balanced, like we say, we had that money coming in, balancing. It got to a point where I was like, I reckon I can do this by myself. But obviously, it's still daunting making that leap. Of course it is, because it's, it's comfort versus exposure, really,
Risk, yeah.
right? Risk. Yeah, absolutely. But it got to a point where I was in meetings being spoken to like shit from higher management, people that were the same level as me. And I remember being like, fuck you, fuck you. I don't need to do this anymore. I can work for myself. I know I can make this work. That
But how did you make it work?
Well,
What were the steps?
just continue doing what I was doing.
So scaling.
Yeah, because I knew that when I was going to leave, but although I knew I could scale, remember that we're at a point where my income was matching my salary, if not progressing it. So all that was happening, and I was able to match that on the limited hours that I was doing, an hour after work and then in the evenings and at the weekends. So when I knew that I was going to leave my job, like I had all this free open time. So it wasn't like I'm going to give some really dumb examples, right? So say like my salary was £1,000 and I was making maybe £200 a month. And I was like, oh God, I've got to close that gap. Like that gap was already closed. So I think if you know that you can get close to it, and it's all relevant to your circumstances, right? And how much it is to maybe run your household or how much you need to live. But I was already there. So I'd worked tirelessly for like what, 4 or 5 years to get to that point, to then get to the point where, like I say, when I was saying about people talking to me like shit in meetings, that was just the tipping point for me where I was like, now I'm done. And I come home to you and said, I know I can do this. I know I can make this work. I want to go and do this. So that's what I mean. It all tying in together. They're the steps really. Make the make the income to match, or at least get close to either your salary or, what you would need, or even if you know that you need to make £100 a day, but with the limited hours you've got, you can make 50. But if you knew you quit your job, you could get there, that you can make it work, because if you've got the time, you're going to be able to put more into it.
Understood. You also, excuse me, you also opened a studio whilst still working that corporate job.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So I had a friend that found a space and she was like, found this space. I think this would be an amazing space for you to open a studio. And it took me 3 months to make a decision on it due to some personal circumstances that I was a bit like, oh, if I do this, And also imposter syndrome too, right? Like I was like, I don't know, what am I going to do? Because I'm going to have to leave my current studio. And yes, it is a bit petty, but if you leave, the door sort of shuts for you to go back as well. So then I was like, right, so then I'd have nowhere to go if I don't make this work. Where am I going to train? What am I going to do? So I had that imposter syndrome. But yeah, had the studio whilst working the corporate job. So again, still hustling my arse off, like driving now from one end of the city to the other to like make that work, and teaching most classes. So again, like I had that revenue built in, where I was like, but again, I didn't have a child, so that is a big.
It does make a difference.
It does make a difference.
There's no doubt it makes a difference.
Not to say that it's not achievable, because we make it work now, but there was no other circumstances to take into consideration.
Yes.
Yeah. I had the studio, and that's how I got it, made a decision on it. I already knew I could make it work because I was already going to work and going to the studio. Like I used to finish work, like I say, about 4, half 4. Classes don't start till 6. I knew I could make that additional journey without having to come home. So that made sense logistically. I put together a timetable, laid out all the logistics in terms of what I needed, what the outlay was at the time. I found a gym that was piss cheap to rent. It was £10 £10 an hour to rent, so didn't really have a lot. The poles were just because the roof was like a normal roof height, I just had to buy floor to ceiling poles. So they were like a couple of £100 a pole. It's not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. And then decorate this white room. So like,
yeah, I think we should point out we call it a studio. It was a room and a gym. It was a studio and a gym. That, I mean, it was a strongman gym, quite spit and sawdust. Not perhaps the most aligned with the kind of brand and the vision of the sport, but again, it's that coming in and doing what needs to be done in the first instance.
Yeah,
it wasn't particularly glamorous, but it was fine. It was a place to start.
But also, I was hustling, and I wasn't spending the money that I was making.
That's so important.
So I had this nest egg. I didn't know what the next move was. I don't tend to plan like that. We've never planned like that, do we?
No.
We never like, in 5 years' time, we would like to achieve X, or this time next year. It's just not within our nature. All we ever do is just move forward day by day. And whatever that looks like, whatever life chucks at us or comes our way, we just deal with. So it wasn't like I had this money saved up to be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with it. But I was ready to make a move when it was time. So that's also a big fundamental factor, because then, I was hustling still, corporate, studio, online clients, PTs, all of this stuff, kettlebell plan still, making content for all of it to be able to drive traffic to all of these different revenue streams, to then be in a position to be able to open my own studio, which has a huge financial burden, which is probably not spoken about enough in the industry, or even just understanding what that looks like.
The launch cost is crazy. The launch cost is, it's something that you talked about. So firstly, reinvesting the money into your business as you're growing, it gets really, excuse me, it gets really tempting that as you are, especially when you're earning a salary,
it's pocket money, isn't it?
It becomes pocket money, and it's easy to kind of fritter it away, but you've got to start immediately thinking about reinvesting it or just holding on to it so you can make a move. That's so important. And that's the reason so many young businesses fail, is that they get excited by the extra money and they want to spend it. And you've always been very good at just
such a secret
yeah,
squirrel,
you really are. So let's talk to them about the move then, the big transition. I play a small operational support role, but it's very much your thing. So let's talk about moving from the small room in a strongman gym to what is now widely considered the South's premier aerial acrobatics academy.
So that move in itself took like 7 months, 7-8 months. It actually took 6 months from start of me saying, I want this, and them saying, yes, you can have it, to us getting the keys. It was on par with buying a house in every aspect. The timeline, if not more, and the costs were on par with buying a house.
Yeah.
So that took me a little while. I knew immediately it was just not a good situation. I kept my head down. My language is terrible, but I ate shit. I ate shit.
Wasn't a good situation at the previous gym.
At the previous gym, yeah. Like, I ate shit at that gym. Like, Jesus. I kept my head down because I was like, I need to build. This is part of the journey. This is, I'll look back on this one day and, So I had started looking for premises, which in itself is really hard, and then finding someone that takes you, like putting yourself forward as a small business and then saying, hey, will you take me on for a 5-year, 10-year lease? I know I'm good for the money, but what have you got to prove from that? And even, so anyways, finding a premises took a little while. I remember when I did look at one place where I was like, I know I can make this work. And you were like, do you remember that place upstairs? It would have been not good.
No.
But I was so desperate to get out. But anyway, then found a space. Absolutely loved it. I remember finding it online and being like, this is the one. I remember walking in and being like, this is it. So then that process started, put the offer in terms of like our what we can do, blah, 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 for the landlord to go, yep, you can have it. That process started. But obviously at that time, that was in September, and they said we'd be in by Christmas. So I was like, brilliant. Like this, we'll start to get the ball rolling. But yeah, there's a lot of process involved in that, not only from a financial, from a logistical side of view with like solicitors and stuff, but the equipment, getting the trusts, the
Yeah.
custom made poles, all of your crash mat, your carabiners, your rigging equipment, everything like that. So in one way, it was a really good lead time, but that move took a really long time.
And it's very different to opening a gym, because a lot of the spaces we looked at would have made phenomenal gyms.
Yeah,
If you just need squat racks and dumbbells and, it would have just, but there has to be a certain level of height. Like you say, there has to be
yeah.
this safety aspect.
It
You
was
have to have official rigging. You have to have official sign off. The insurance is nuts. There's so many,
yeah.
excuse the pun, but there's so many hoops to jump through, right?
But there's even like your class, right? Like, so each industrial units have a specific class. So leisure and fitness fall under a certain class. So if you go into a industrial estate that is not class E, you have to apply to the council to get that changed. And if the council decline it, well then you're back to the beginning again, So there's all of these different factors as well to take into consideration. But yeah, it took us a while, but it was a good amount of time to get everything up to wraps and ready to go.
Yeah.
But again, having the financials to be able to do that as well. So, but yeah, it was like buying a house, wasn't it? Must have a toilet on site, because I'd learned from all my previous studios, the studio I was at before didn't have a toilet on site. Hated that. We must have a toilet on site. It has to have a certain amount of height. There was these things, the non-negotiables, like buying a house, that I was like, I am not compromising on this. So yeah. And then we got the keys in the March. That turnaround is aligning everything up is very stressful, because the guy that was coming down, Colm, amazing guy from Newton's Ladder, was coming down from Newcastle. So to be like, I think we're going to exchange on this date, which means we can get in on this date. Can you fit that in your schedule? Because I want to open the studio on this date because I need to start making money.
Yeah.
Aligning all of that.
And signing off on that at 11:15 at night, him finishing the work and his team finishing the work at
It was later
quarter
than
to
that,
11.
was it? Was late. It was like, but yeah, you're right. Like
But
it was
I think maybe we got the
late.
call at quarter to 11 to
Yes.
get back down to the studio. It was just, yeah, nuts.
But not only that, you have to, it was, we had to get that signed off by the landlord too. So being like, hey, we're going to put this in. Is this okay? And he was like, well, can you send me photos of what that looks like? And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, so yeah, it was a big process. So we got the keys in March. The lease went through in the September, got the keys in March. The launch was on the 2nd of April. Big launch party for Dynamic. Loads of people come down. Absolutely love the space. People were just in awe of what we had created, which was amazing. Monday, the 3rd of April, found out we were pregnant. So, everything then took a big turn. But yeah, that's the journey so far. It's just working really hard to support where you want to go long term. Although I didn't quite know where that was. I knew I wasn't going to be like in corporate forever.
Yeah. So, hopefully that puts a little bit of meat on the bones for the viewers and the listeners. To understand why I thought it really valuable to bring Bex in as co-host, self-made businesswoman in the fitness space. I do want to touch on before we finish, and we're going to create the next episode is going to be pretty much specifically about this next subject. But just to kind of whet their appetite, you've got a very particular training methodology, particularly around women being strong. Your methodology, your vision on women training is not slamming calories through the floor. It's not booty blasts. So you've only got muscle mass in your booty and no muscle elsewhere. But you're very specific. So talk me through your philosophy when it comes to training, particularly for women, because I'd like to do, as we said, we'll do that as a episode next episode, but give us a bit of a flavor into that.
So I'm going to talk a little bit specifically. Sorry, excuse me.
We've both been rocking colds this week. You can probably tell in the voice, but we're making do.
I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about pole, because the main population that I work with is women, polers in general. But the training methodology really centers around full body training. That's not to say that any other form of training is not good, because it's amazing. But when you're training for a sport, I think personally, the best way that you can train and the best results that you can see is full body training. In particular, like, there's loads of different aspects of that and what that looks like and what you have available to you. But a big part of that is kettlebell training, because of how transferable it is. But the real sort of view on it is educating women and helping women to understand that it's more about what your body can do versus what it looks like.
Totally agree.
You know, when you start, and I'm talking about this from a performance-based as well. Like, when you can start to see the tricks and stuff that you can perform on the pole, and I'm talking from experience too, like, I was in a stage once where I was eating really little calories and doing loads of workout on the pole, making no progress. And at one point, like, I thought I had MS at one point. So I had like no energy, and I was like, this must be, I don't know what's going on. And actually, I was just severely depleted. Something changed for me along the lines, which we'll go into in another episode. But when I started to look at my body for what it can do, fueling it correctly, training correctly, and within that, like, training the right amount too, not overtraining, having a structure in place for that, everything changed for me in terms of my physique, my performance on the pole, my relationship with my body and and food. And that is really what drives me to help other women, like, seeing yourself for what you can do, understanding and educating, and being strong. Like, we want to be strong. I don't want to be skinny. I don't want to be like, you can't do anything. Like, you can't perform the way that you want to perform. You don't want to, you don't want to be under eating. You want to make sure that your hormones are regulated. You're regulating properly. There's so many nuances. So yeah, that's where it really comes from.
Yeah.
And that way of training.
So much so that you bought the trademark Strong is Sexy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You now own also Strong Girl Collective.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
So that's really the big message, right? Is
100%.
strength.
Yeah, and that was where, like, I knew I wanted, when I opened the first studio, I knew I wanted a neon sign, and I wanted a message to really cement and also make us a little bit different. Let's not say we're different from other studios in that way, but, like, I wanted our studio to be really have a message,
An identity.
An identity, yeah. And that was it. That was where Strong is Sexy was born out of. And then it's just evolved, and everyone at my studio loves, there's all different, there's places for everything, but everyone loves being strong. How do we get stronger? How do we get, how do we get more muscles? Stuff like that. So that, and then they don't focus on, like, oh, I don't want to be eating carbs. Well, no, babes, get those carbs in, because, you're going to fuel your bodies, and then you're going to get a PB and kettlebells tonight. Like, it's a good message. It's a good mindset. It's a really good narrative, and one that I'm really proud of.
I agree. I'm very proud of you too. So there we go. Your new co-host for the Fit for Function podcast. We've got some amazing episodes forthcoming with addiction coaches, Raw Marine, talking about a military mindset, and some other wonderful people, relationship experts.
And me and you. Oh.
And me and you. And me and you. Jesus Christ. Right. I think that's the perfect place to kind of call it.
Thank you for joining us, guys. If you've listened all the way through, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm really excited to be a part of this moving forward. I will wrap this up because you need to go take a Jakeman's.
I do. I need a cough sweet.
Thanks, guys.